The gavel came down like a death sentence. I watched Judge Morrison's mouth move, but the words seemed to come from underwater. All marital assets, including the primary residence at 428 Maple Drive, the rental property on Lakewood Avenue, the 2019 Lexus, and all joint accounts totaling $3.2 million, are hereby awarded to the plaintiff, Jennifer Hayes. Jennifer, my wife of 28 years. Sitting there with her lawyer, no, not her lawyer, her boyfriend, Marcus Webb, the man she'd been sleeping with for God knows how long while I was building our life, brick by brick. Furthermore, the judge continued, temporary spousal support in the amount of $8,000 per month shall be paid by the defendant until my attorney, a kid fresh out of law school I could barely afford, touched my arm. I jerked away. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't how divorce worked. We lived in California, for crying out loud. Community property, 50-50. That's what everyone said. But Marcus Webb wasn't everyone, and Jennifer had played me perfectly. Let me back up. Let me tell you how a 63-year-old architect who spent his entire adult life doing the right thing ended up standing in a courtroom watching his entire world get handed to the woman who destroyed it. My name is Michael Hayes. For 28 years, I thought I knew what my life was. I'd wake up at 6, kiss Jennifer goodbye, and head to my architecture firm in downtown Sacramento. Small firm, just me and 2 partners. But we did good work. Sustainable design, community projects, the kind of stuff that made you feel like you were contributing something. Jennifer worked part-time at an art gallery, or at least that's what she told me. We had 2 kids, Emma, 21, and Tyler, 19, both in college. Both, I thought, well-adjusted and happy. The change started about 18 months before everything fell apart. Little things at first. Jennifer joined a gym, started dressing differently, got her hair done more often. I remember thinking it was nice, you know. We were in our 60s. It was good to see her taking care of herself. Then came the phone calls she'd taken another room. The girls' nights that ran later and later. The way she'd angle her phone away from me when texting. I wasn't an idiot. But I also wasn't the kind of man who snooped through his wife's phone. I trusted her. 28 years of marriage, you build that trust. You think it means something. I finally confirmed it on a Tuesday. Emma had left her laptop at our house over spring break. I was going to drop it off at her apartment when I noticed it was still on. Facebook was open, and there, in Jennifer's messages, because apparently my wife and daughter were Facebook friends, and Jennifer didn't know Emma's laptop auto-synced, were months of conversations. Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Marcus. What if Michael finds out? He won't. And even if he does, you'll get everything. I promise you that. Marcus Webb. I Googled him right there. Financial advisor. Divorced twice. And according to his fancy website, he specialized in asset protection and wealth preservation strategies. I sat in my car outside Emma's apartment for an hour, just staring at that screen. 28 years, 2 kids, a mortgage we'd paid off together. Vacations, inside jokes, the kind of mundane daily intimacy that you think cements a life together. All of it, a lie. I didn't confront her right away. I know that was my first mistake. Instead, I went to see a lawyer. Not Marcus, obviously, not even a friend. I found someone in the phone book. James Riley. Small practice, 1-room office above a dry cleaner. He charged $200 an hour, which was all I could afford because, and this is important, all our money was in joint accounts. Here's what I need you to understand, Riley said, his desk cluttered with folders. In California, divorce is supposed to be equitable, 50-50 split of assets in most cases. But there are exceptions. What kind of exceptions? If one party can prove the other party wasted marital assets, committed fraud, or, and this is the big one, if there are issues of abuse or domestic violence. There's no abuse, I said. I've never laid a hand on Jennifer. Riley nodded. That's good. Then we go for a standard equitable division. When do you want to file? Tomorrow. That was my second mistake. I should have waited. Should have documented everything. Should have moved some money into a separate account, at least enough to hire a better lawyer. But I was angry and hurt and stupid, and I just wanted it done. Jennifer got served the next day at the gallery. She came home that night with Marcus, right into our house, our home. They walked in together, and Marcus had his hand on the small of her back, and I swear to God, they looked at me like I was the intruder. "Michael," Jennifer said, and her voice had this calm, almost pitying quality to it. "We need to talk. I think the divorce papers say everything." "No." She sat down on our couch that I'd saved up for 3 months to buy back in 2003, and Marcus sat next to her. "This is going to go one of two ways. You can make it easy, or you can make it hard. I think I'll make it fair. 50-50, like the law says." Marcus smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "See, that's where you're wrong, Michael. The law says a lot of things, but what matters is what we can prove in court." Over the next 6 months, I watched my life get systematically destroyed. First, Jennifer filed a restraining order, claimed I'd been verbally abusive for years, emotionally manipulative, that she was afraid of me. The judge granted a temporary order, which meant I had to move out of my own house. I found a studio apartment in Rancho Cordova, 600 square feet. The previous tenant had a cat, and the smell never quite went away. My furniture from the house wouldn't fit, so I bought a used mattress and a folding table from Goodwill. Second, she drained our joint accounts, all of them. $3.1 million moved into accounts I couldn't access. When I called the bank, they said she had every right to do it. Joint account meant joint access. I scraped together $15,000 from a small consulting account. I'd kept separate money from side projects I'd done over the years. That was all I had. Third, she turned the kids against me. Emma stopped answering my calls. Tyler blocked me on every social media platform. When I showed up at Emma's apartment, she wouldn't let me in. "Dad, I can't believe you're doing this to Mom," she said through the door. "Doing what?" "Emma. She's the one who finally stood up for herself after years of your control." "Yeah, Dad, we know. Mom told us everything." Everything. Whatever that meant. Whatever lies Jennifer and Marcus had crafted. The court date was set for 6 months out. In that time, I kept working. I had to. My partners at the firm were sympathetic but distant. They'd heard Jennifer's version of events, after all, and in our professional circles, perception was everything. I met with Riley once a week. We prepared our case. Standard divorce, equitable division of assets. No fault on either side, despite the infidelity, because California is a no-fault state. "We'll get you half of everything," Riley assured me. "The house, the savings, the investment accounts. You might have to pay some spousal support, given the income disparity, but you'll be fine." I believed him. I shouldn't have. On the day of the hearing, I wore my only suit. It was 10 years old, and there was a small coffee stain on the sleeve I couldn't get out. Jennifer wore a designer dress I'd never seen before, and diamond earrings that must have cost $10,000. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table with 2 other lawyers, 3 against my 1. The hearing lasted 4 hours. I watched in growing horror as Marcus presented his case. "Your Honor, we have documented evidence of Mr. Hayes' pattern of financial abuse. He controlled all marital finances, forcing Mrs. Hayes to ask permission for every purchase. He monitored her bank statements. He questioned every expense." I wanted to scream. I'd done the bookkeeping because I was better at it. Jennifer hated dealing with bills and taxes. It had been our arrangement for 28 years. Furthermore, Marcus continued, "We have testimony from both adult children regarding their father's emotional manipulation and verbal abuse." Emma took the stand. My daughter, 21 years old, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike and helped move into her first dorm room. "He was always criticizing Mom," Emma said, not looking at me. "Nothing she did was good enough. He'd make these little comments, about her weight, her clothes, her friends. None of that was true. None of it." Tyler went next. "Dad has anger issues. I remember him throwing things, punching walls. Mom was scared of him. I had never in my entire life punched a wall." Riley tried to cross-examine, but he was outmatched. When it was my turn to testify, Marcus tore me apart. "Mr. Hayes, isn't it true you have a separate bank account you never disclosed to your wife?" "I have a small consulting account for side projects. Jennifer knew about it." Did she have access to this account? No, but so you kept financial secrets. What else did you keep from her, Mr. Hayes? It went on like that for an hour. Every normal thing I'd done, having a work email she didn't have the password to, taking business trips, meeting with clients, got twisted into evidence of secrecy and control. When Judge Morrison delivered her ruling, I felt the floor drop out from under me. Everything. Jennifer got everything. The house we'd bought together in 1998, where we'd raised our kids, gone. The rental property I'd purchased with my inheritance from my father, gone. Our retirement accounts, my 401k, our joint savings $3.2 million, gone. My car, gone. And on top of all of it, $8,000 a month in spousal support. The court finds credible evidence of financial abuse and emotional manipulation, Judge Morrison said. In cases where one party has demonstrated a pattern of control and coercion, it is appropriate to award a disproportionate share of assets to the victimized party. I stood there, watching Jennifer and Marcus embrace, watching my attorney gather his papers with apologetic eyes, watching my life end. That night, in my cat-smelling studio apartment, I sat on my used mattress and tried to understand what had just happened. 28 years of work, of saving, of building, gone in 4 hours. I had $6,200 in my consulting account. That was it. 63 years old. And I was starting over with less money than I'd had when I was 25. The next morning, Emma called. Dad, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry it had to be this way. It didn't have to be this way. Yes, it did. You need to understand what you did to Mom. Maybe now you'll get help. Emma, your mother lied to you. No, Dad. You lied to all of us. She hung up. I tried to keep working, but word spread fast. Architecture is a small world in Sacramento, and I was now the guy who'd lost everything in a divorce because he was financially abusive. Clients started canceling projects. My partners called a meeting. Michael, we think it's best if you take some time away from the firm. You're firing me? We're suggesting a voluntary leave. Just until things settle down. I knew what that meant. I cleaned out my desk that afternoon. For 2 months, I lived on my rapidly dwindling savings. I applied for jobs, any jobs. Architecture firms wouldn't touch me. I was overqualified for retail, and too old for most of the other positions I applied for. The spousal support payments wiped out what little I had. By month 3, I was behind on rent. That's when Tyler showed up at my door. My son, who'd testified against me in court. Dad, can I come in? I should have slammed the door. I should have told him to go back to his mother. Instead, I let him in because he was my son, and apparently I'm an idiot. I need money, he said. You need money? Yeah. I got into some trouble at school. Academic probation. I need to pay for a tutor, and Mom says she can't help because all her money is tied up in legal stuff with you. I stared at him. Tyler, I have $600 to my name. I can't even pay rent next month. Come on, Dad. Don't be like that. I'm your son. And you called me an abusive liar in court. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. Mom said I had to. She said if I didn't testify, she'd cut me off financially. College, living expenses, everything. Something in me broke then. Not anger, just exhaustion. Get out, Tyler. But Dad, get out. After he left, I sat in that shitty apartment and took stock of my life. No job, no money, no family, no future. I thought about ending it. I'm not ashamed to say that. For about 20 minutes that night, I seriously considered just being done with the whole mess. Then I remembered something my grandfather, Frederick Hayes, used to say. Michael, the measure of a man isn't what he has, it's what he does when he has nothing. Grandpa Frederick had died when I was 15, but I still remembered him vividly. Tough old guy, World War II vet, worked as a machinist his whole life. He'd lived in a small house in Stockton, and after he died, my dad sold it for pennies. I'd cleaned out Grandpa's house with my dad. I remembered finding all these old papers, old photographs. My dad had thrown most of it away, but I'd kept a few things. A medal from the war, his old dog tags, and a small wooden box with some random papers inside. I still had that box. It was one of the few things I'd taken from the house before Jennifer had the locks changed. I dug it out of my closet. Inside were Grandpa's discharge papers, some old photos, a purple heart, and a manila envelope, yellowed with age. I opened it. Inside were stock certificates. Actual paper stock certificates. The kind they don't really issue anymore. The company name, Orion Computing Systems. Date of purchase, the 12th of April, 1992. Number of shares, 500. Purchase price, $10 per share. I'd never heard of Orion Computing Systems. I Googled it on my phone. Orion Computing Systems had been acquired by Microsoft in 1997. The acquisition had been big news at the time, $2.8 billion for a small software company that had developed networking protocols. The kind of acquisition that made early investors very, very rich. My hands were shaking as I kept reading. The stock had split 3 times since then. Those 500 shares Grandpa bought for $5,000 in 1992 were now 4,000 shares of Microsoft stock. Current Microsoft share price, 370 opt. I did the math 3 times because I couldn't believe it. 4,000 shares times $378 per share. 151,200,000美元. $1.5 million. But wait, there was more. A second certificate in the envelope. Same company, same date. Another 500 shares. $3 million. And a third. And a fourth. Grandpa Frederick had bought 2,500 shares of Orion Computing Systems in 1992. After splits and the Microsoft acquisition, that was now 20,000 shares. 20,000 shares times $378 per share. 756万美元. $7.5 million. I sat there in my shitty apartment at 2 in the morning, holding stock certificates worth more money than I'd earned in my entire career, and I started laughing. The kind of laughing that turns into crying. The kind you can't stop. Grandpa Frederick, who'd lived in a tiny house in Stockton and drove the same truck for 30 years and wore the same 3 work shirts for as long as I could remember, had been sitting on a fortune. No, that's not quite right. Grandpa Frederick had made an investment in a tech company he believed in, and then he'd forgotten about it. Or he'd died before he could do anything with it. Or he'd left it deliberately, waiting for someone who needed it. I needed it. The next morning I went to a wealth management firm in downtown Sacramento. A real one, with glass doors and receptionist and everything. I need help transferring stock certificates, I said. The advisor they assigned me, a woman in her 40s named Patricia Chen, looked at the certificates with wide eyes. Mr. Hayes, do you realize what you have here? Yes. These will need to be authenticated and converted to electronic shares. It'll take some time, but you're a wealthy man. How long? 2 weeks, maybe 3. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we can extend you a line of credit against the value of these shares. Not the full amount, maybe 40%. But that's still. She did quick math on her calculator. $3 million. I borrowed $50,000 against that credit line. Cash, deposited into my consulting account. First thing I did was pay my back rent. Second thing was buy a decent suit. Third thing was hire a real lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The best family law attorney in Sacramento, Helen Pritchard. She'd been named one of the top 50 divorce lawyers in California 3 years running. Her retainer was $25,000. I paid it in cash. Mr. Hayes, she said at our first meeting, reviewing my case file, this is one of the most egregious rulings I've ever seen. How did Judge Morrison justify giving your wife everything? She believed I was financially abusive. Were you? No. Helen nodded. Then we appeal. But I need to warn you, appeals are expensive, and they take time. And even if we win, you might not get everything back. I don't need everything back. I need justice. Justice is expensive. I can afford it. Over the next 3 months, Helen and her team tore apart Jennifer's case. They hired forensic accountants who traced the movement of our joint funds. They hired private investigators who documented Jennifer's affair with Marcus, not just the affair itself, but the timeline. The affair had started 2 years before I filed for divorce. 2 years of planning. They also found something else. Marcus Webb wasn't just a financial advisor. He'd been involved in 3 similar cases. 3 other men, all in their 60s, all divorced from wives who'd hired Marcus as their financial advisor. All 3 men had lost everything. All 3 of their ex-wives had married Marcus. He was running a scam, a long con. Target wealthy, aging men, seduce their wives, file for divorce, claim abuse, get everything, marry the wife, access the money, then divorce her too. Jennifer was going to be his next mark. Helen brought all of this to the appeals court with a 50-page brief that read like a crime novel. The appeals hearing was different from the first trial. Different Judge Robert Chen, a no-nonsense man in his 70s who actually read the evidence. Marcus tried to object to most of it. Your Honor, this is character assassination. The original trial was a farce, Judge Chen interrupted. I've reviewed the case file, Mr. Webb. I've also reviewed your professional history. Please sit down. The hearing took 2 days. Helen presented everything, the forensic accounting showing Jennifer had been secretly moving money for months before I filed. The evidence of the affair starting years earlier. The pattern of Marcus's previous victims. Emma and Tyler were in the courtroom. Jennifer had made them come. But as the evidence piled up, I saw something change in Emma's face. Recognition. Doubt. When Judge Chen delivered his ruling, the courtroom went silent. The original divorce decree is hereby vacated in its entirety. The evidence clearly demonstrates not only fraud, but a systematic conspiracy to deprive Mr. Hayes of his rightful share of marital assets. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation into potential fraud, perjury, and identity theft. Jennifer went white. Marcus stood up. Your Honor, you can't. Sit down, Mr. Webb. You'll have your chance to answer these questions. Bailiff, please ensure neither the plaintiff nor her counsel leave this courtroom until I've finished. Judge Chen ordered an immediate freeze on all assets that had been transferred from our joint accounts. He ordered Jennifer to pay restitution to me in the amount of $3.2 million plus legal fees. He ordered Marcus's financial advisor license suspended pending investigation. And then he said something I'll never forget. Mr. Hayes, I want to apologize on behalf of the court system. What happened to you in Judge Morrison's courtroom was a miscarriage of justice. I hope this ruling goes some way toward making it right. Outside the courtroom, Emma found me. Dad, She was crying. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Mom told us you were controlling, that you were emotionally abusive, and I believed her. I should have talked to you. I should have listened. I hugged my daughter for the first time in 9 months. It's okay, Em. It's not okay. Tyler and I testified against you. We said terrible things. Your mother manipulated you. That's on her, not you. Tyler joined us a few minutes later. He couldn't quite meet my eyes. Dad, I'm sorry doesn't even begin to cover it. Then don't say you're sorry, just be better. That night, the 3 of us went to dinner. Just us. No lawyers, no drama. Emma told me about her classes. Tyler admitted he'd dropped out of college 2 months ago, but had been too scared to tell anyone. We talked about everything and nothing, and for the first time in a year, I felt like I had a family again. Jennifer didn't go to prison, though she probably should have. Marcus did 18 months for fraud. His license was permanently revoked, and the other men he'd scammed came forward with their own lawsuits. Jennifer paid back the money, though I never saw most of it. By the time her lawyer fees and the restitution payments were done, she was broke. She moved to Oregon to live with her sister. I didn't feel victorious. Mostly I just felt tired. The stock certificates, once fully transferred, were worth $7.8 million. The market had gone up during the transfer process. After taxes, legal fees, and paying off some debts, I had about $5.2 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I used some of it to help Emma finish college debt-free. I helped Tyler enroll in a trade program. Turns out he wanted to be an electrician, not go to college, but had been too afraid to tell anyone. Good kid, just needed to find his path. I donated $1 million to establish the Frederick Hayes Foundation. It provides free legal assistance to men and women going through contested divorces who can't afford good representation. Because what happened to me happens to people every day, and most of them don't find a box of stock certificates in their closet. As for me, I bought a small house in Fair Oaks. Nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, quiet street. I went back to work, doing freelance architecture projects for nonprofits and community organizations. Not for the money, I didn't need it anymore, but because I liked the work. Emma stops by every Sunday for dinner. Tyler comes when he can. We're rebuilding what was broken. I never spoke to Jennifer again after the appeals hearing. She tried to call a few times, left voicemails apologizing, saying Marcus had manipulated her too. Maybe that was true. Maybe she really was another one of his victims. But she'd been willing to destroy me to get what she wanted. She'd been willing to turn our children against me, and I couldn't forget that. My grandfather used to say that integrity is what you do when nobody's watching. I'd like to think I kept my integrity through all of this. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted justice. The difference between those two things? Revenge is about hurting the person who hurt you. Justice is about making things right. I got justice. It cost me a year of my life, most of my savings, and almost cost me my relationship with my kids. But I got it. And every night, when I sit in my house in Fair Oaks, I look at the framed photo on my mantel. It's Grandpa Frederick in his Navy uniform, 1944, looking stern and young and invincible. Thanks, Grandpa, I say to that photo. You were right. It's not about what you have. It's what you do when you have nothing. I had nothing. And I did something. That's enough.